This is ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Zach Seyko here, and on the phones today, we have Bellefonte varsity baseball head coach John Clark. John, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're going to get to know more about this talented baseball team. They're off to an incredible start. But first, I want to start with you and who you are as a coach, what kind of values you like to instill in your programs and your teams, and the expectations that you have for yourself and your coaching staff.
One of the things I think we try to instill in the team is to compete with one another in practice. If you're competing in practice and working hard in practice, then you're setting yourself up, to compete in games. And ultimately that's where the end result is. So we try to instill, competition. What breeds competition is working hard, taking each rep, as if it's the most important. And then when it comes to the game itself, things tend to fall into place where they should if you're doing those things in practice. The other part of the game then that we try to instill in the guys is control what we can control and forget about the things we can't control. There's always things that are out of our control, an umpire strike zone, maybe a bad call that we feel we got, weather. You can't control those things, but there are things we can control, and we try to keep it pretty simple. We want to hit line drives, hit the ball hard. We want our pitchers to throw strikes, and we have a level that we want to reach with that, 60%. And then we say we need to make routine plays, and so one or fewer errors. And we've found kind of over the years, if you're checking those boxes and you're controlling what you can control, everything else kind of falls into place. And so I think everybody on the staff kind of buys into that, and we try to instill that in the kids.
And looking back at last season, it was a competitive team, but probably not the standards that you wanted to be, finishing the season 12-8, which again was successful, over 500. But now this team has taken a leap, going back through the offseason and then right before first pitch to start the regular season. What did you know about this team? What did you see in them that could have led you to believe that, hey, this is where we are going to be 12 games into the season at this point?
I'll be honest with you, with this group, I was a little unsure of what we would have. We had 11 seniors graduate last year. A lot of them contributed in various ways. We had a couple guys who had been 4-year starters for us. And so coming into this year, we did have a handful of kids who had some varsity experience coming back, but we also had some holes to fill. And we knew we had some talented guys. We have a young roster. We only have 2 seniors on our roster this year. And we knew certain guys we could count on, but then we had to kind of see, how some other guys would respond. There's a difference when you leap from JV to varsity, or, we have some freshmen coming in and helping us out in some different ways. And so, I wasn't really sure. I knew we had a good group of kids. They're fun to be around. Practice is a lot of fun. They have a really great energy, a good chemistry about them, which is a big part of being successful on the field. But then you don't know how's it going to play out on the field. So I'll be honest. I knew we had guys that worked hard in the off season. Came to open gyms. They work on their own. They came to weightlifting. That we'd have, multiple times a week. And, we also have a lot of multi-sport athletes, which I think in the end, helps you in no matter what your program is. I also coach football at State College, and, multi-sport athletes, they have a leg up in a lot of ways. So I knew we had some good pieces there. I just wasn't quite sure how it would come together, but the kids have risen to every challenge, and they've overcome a ton of obstacles, along the way. No game is a cinch. Sometimes maybe the pitching isn't quite there, and so the defense and offense pick it up, and maybe the offense is struggling, and, pitching picks up, and that's the neat thing is these guys have stayed up, they stay positive, and they've battled through all the games. And so where we are right now, I still think we have a lot of ways we can improve, which is kind of scary in some ways, with the success that we have, but we definitely don't take any of the success for granted. It can change really, really quick.
Bellefonte varsity baseball head coach John Clark is on the line with us here on ESPN Radio. You mentioned not necessarily the lack of experience, but not enough really of quality experience on varsity. A lot of guys have moved up, but they've risen to the occasion. They had to get better in the offseason. So what was that offseason program like for your team?
A lot of our guys involve themselves in baseball outside of what we do here. They're involved in travel teams and summer leagues, and so our guys go in a lot of different directions. Once a season ends, and so they're getting a lot of that experience outside. And then kind of once football season is kind of wrapping up, we start hitting the weight room a couple days a week, and we had a dedicated group that was there on a regular basis, lifting multiple times a week. And then come the new year, we start hitting the gym once a week, and then we add a second day in the week, and we're getting pitchers throwing a couple days a week, building their arms for pitch counts. We're working on a lot of timing and fundamental things in the off season, again, a couple days a week. And, again, a lot of our guys are multi-sport athletes. And so, even though they're not training for baseball, being involved in basketball or wrestling or football, those things are making them better athletes overall. And so if they're not training with us, in baseball, that's because they're playing another sport, which I can't speak more about is the importance of those multi-sport athletes.
I know you could go through every kid on this roster and say something good about them, but who are some of the guys that have really stepped up? Maybe they, were somebody that was a role player last year and now they've worked their way into a starting role, or just the leaders on this team who really deserve some recognition for why Bellefonte's in this position of success right now?
I think it starts at the top with kind of the ace of our staff, Derek Fravel. He's a senior who's been pitching for us since he was a freshman. He keeps us in games when maybe offensively we're struggling, and he brings the experience. He's been with us since he was a freshman. He endured the COVID year where we didn't get to play, so he takes nothing for granted, and so he kind of knows what's expected and maybe where teams in the past have struggled and where teams in the past have been successful, and he tries to bring this to the young group that we have. So, I think first and foremost, talking to him or speaking about him. And then, you look at, guys that were with us last year and had some opportunities. And so they have a little bit of experience, like a Trevor Johnson or Braden Kermanek or Alex Ebling. They've been with the program for a couple of years now and have some of that experience. And they're following the lead of Derek. Tristan Heckman at shortstop was someone last year, didn't start with us initially at varsity, but about halfway through the season, Coach, my assistant coach Hall and I, we got a chance to coach a JV game because our coaches were unavailable for a tournament. And we went and saw Tristan play, and we knew he was a great athlete, but really caught our eye. And we brought him up to finish the season last year, and he's been on fire at the plate. And again, like you said, there's a lot of other guys that you can mention. It seems like every game somebody else is stepping up. But Braden does a great job handling all our pitchers. As a sophomore catcher, he was our starting catcher last year as a freshman. And so, there's a lot of guys that are part of this process, and you're right. There's a lot of good things to say about all of them, but I know we don't have that much time.
Now let's get to the current point of the season. Bellefonte's now on a double-digit game winning streak, opening up the season against Williamsport with an 11-6 loss. Was that something that really kind of kick-started everything? Was that just a learning moment? How did it set this course now to where you still have one loss on the season, but over double-digit wins?
I do think that, the Williamsport game was the first time with a young group, seeing where guys, would fit in. And I think that first game, it's first game jitters, it's first game, it was their first game as well, but they had a pitcher who was dealing, and we just didn't check the boxes that I spoke of earlier, the hitting line drives, the throwing strikes, the making routine plays. I mean, that was our season high. I think we had 6 or 7 errors in that game. So it was kind of uncharacteristic of this group. But one thing with this group is, after that game, you realize this is what we need to work on, and we're very open. We weren't good at this, and we'll talk to players very openly. You didn't do this well, or this player didn't, and it's not to be critical of them. It's to say, here's what we need to do to get better. And again, going back to something I said, this group is extremely coachable. This group is willing to put the work in practice to get better at the things we're not as good at, or maybe we weren't as successful with in the last game or the last couple games, and they took it to heart. Next couple practices, a lot of defensive focus, and I think it kickstarted things and got us going. And once you have success, it's kind of contagious at times. So we're going to ride the wave as long as we can.
Bellefonte varsity baseball head coach John Clark is here with us on ESPN Radio. Now the final question, undefeated in the Mountain League and still a lot of competitive games on the horizon. What lies ahead for this team? How can this season continue to trend in the way it is?
Each game, brings up something or an area that, hey, we haven't worked on this, or a new scenario, or, points to something that we got to get better at. So, as we continue to move forward, the nice part about games is you're never going to play the perfect game. I don't believe you're always striving for that, but it will highlight, as you strive for that, the areas you need to get better. And so each game is an opportunity for us to get better, but also identify where it is that we need to improve or work on the next practice. So, that's kind of our approach moving forward. We take it one game at a time. I know it's kind of cliche, but we don't worry about the end result. What lies ahead at the end of the season. We know, we have goals. We want to make it into districts. We want to have an opportunity to compete for a district championship, because we know that then opens the door for an opportunity at state playoffs. And if you go on a 4-game winning streak, which Coach Fravel and our 2016 group did, you go on that winning streak in the state playoff, and you can have an opportunity to play in that ultimate game at the end. But we try not to lose sight of the here and now. We've never talked about, the ultimate goal is a Mountain League championship, only because sometimes there's factors out of your control with that. Weather, makes you got to throw pitchers 3 or 4 days in a row, or have pitchers available, and maybe you don't have, the top arms. And some of it is kind of luck of how the schedule plays out. But, as we've talked, it's never an ultimate goal. It doesn't get us into playoffs. It doesn't, guarantee us a spot in the state playoff. It's an accomplishment that if we can achieve it, we'll check that box. But we have to take it one game at a time. And I told them we've put ourselves in a position to, hey, we have a chance. We've got some really good teams in the Mountain League coming up that are going to be good measuring sticks for, district play and hopefully state play. And so we'll take it one game at a time. But I tell them I'd be remiss if I didn't say, we have an opportunity to have a run at the Mountain League championship at this point. And so we knew, like yesterday, we had Huntington league opponent. This is the most important game. If you want to achieve that goal, we got to check that box. And, so that's how we'll approach the rest of the season, one game at a time, and not lose sight of what our immediate goals are, but also our long-range goals.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bellefonte varsity baseball head coach John Clark joining us on the line today here on ESPN Radio. Coach, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to catching up in the very near future to continue to monitor the success of this team.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate you having me.